walls in 1668. In fact, the Castillo de San Marcos was built because of Searle's sacking of the colonial town, and because the Spanish were tired of the Brethren of the Coast burning down their wooden forts. Incredibly, archaeologists have uncovered burned artifacts from both Drake's and Searle's raids in downtown St. Augustine. Real proof of pirate attacks.
So most of the artifacts that were in this window here, the pottery and all, is all dated back to the late 15th and early 16th century. Again, about that same time period when the raids were happening, and evidence and proof that the people basically had to get up and flee the city. Their dining room tables, when the attacks came in, they had to just get up and leave right away to avoid being murdered. So here in the captain's cabin, we have quite a few artifacts from Captain William Kidd. We'll talk about Blackbeard. He actually started out as a privateer. Anybody know what a privateer was? No? All right, well, a privateer was during the 1600s, they called the golden age of piracy because it became so popular because England, France, and Spain were at war. They were all at war with each other. And outside of their armies and navies, they would hire these sea captains to attack their enemies at sea. And they were given a contract or a letter of marque, making it illegal for them to attack these ships. So Captain Kidd and Blackbeard were privateers. They were called privateers. And it was their job to attack French and Spanish ships, disrupt their supply lines, and take their cargo so England could gain the advantage in the wars. Well, France and Spain did the same thing. So all these pirates are out there attacking, working for governments, and they got a very high commission on all the goods that they stole from these ships, so they made a lot of money. Now, Blackbeard decided he could have a lot more success if he attacked anybody, anywhere, and not just French and Spanish. So he kind of went rogue and went on his own there. But Captain Kidd was quite successful. He had accumulated treasure worth over $5 million in 1699 by doing these privateer attacks and working for England. Now, the problem with Captain Kidd was he made an honest mistake one day. He saw a ship on the horizon. He thought it was a French ship, so he gave the command to attack. And no quarter, which means kill all, take no prisoners. And he thought it was a French ship. Well, it turns out it was not. It was Dutch. Dutch flag and French flag were very similar in the 1600s. And the Dutch, however, were allies of England. And that ship was loaded with supplies for British troops. Guns, ammunition, food, and gold. And so he attacked that ship, killed everybody, took all the treasure. And so King William actually had Dutch blood in his family lines. And he was not real happy when he heard about that. So he said, I want this man brought to London to stand trial for piracy. So he issued a warrant for his arrest. When Kidd found out he was a wanted man, he said, well, I'll sail into Boston and speak to the governor there, Lord Bellamont, and try to clear my name. But before we do that, like any good pirate would do, he said, let's go bury the treasure. So where did Captain Kidd bury his treasure? No History Channel watchers here, huh? It was not Oak Island. Hear that a lot. But the maps. What's that?
Was it the Florida Keys?
Nope. The maps that were found in his possession, though, indicate that this is where he buried the treasure. However, this treasure has never been found, even to this day.
Gardiner's Island is a small island just off present-day Long Island, and it's where Captain Kidd buried treasure in 1699, just before he was tricked, tried, and sent to Execution Valley. Displayed here in Captain's cabin is Captain Kidd's original documents of his journey to England, his trial, and his execution.
So Gardiner's Island is a small island not far from Long Island. Now, Kidd was born in Wales, but he moved his family to Long Island, New York, and where he was a sea captain there, well-respected man. And so Gardner Island, not far from there. So he goes to bury his treasure, then he sails into Boston to see the governor there, Lord Bellamont. And when he gets there, the governor says, Captain Kidd, you, sir, are under arrest, as well as your crew. I have a letter from King William demanding your return. My hands are tied. So in this case here are the documents of that journey. This is the ship's log. This end is from the HMS Advice. That was the British naval ship that took Captain Kidd and his crew from Boston Harbor back to London. in 1699. In the center here is the original transcript of his trial that took place in London. And in the gold frame on the end there's a newspaper article that was released with the headline, Captain Kidd Guilty, Sentenced to be Hanged. So he went there to plead that he had a letter of marque, but when he went before the judge, he could not produce his letter of marque. And so they said, well, no letter, you're guilty. Some say that someone took his letter so he couldn't prove his innocence. He was going to say that I have a letter of marque, I'm a privateer, I'm not a pirate. It was a mistake. We thought that was a French ship, but no dice. They're like, no, you attacked a friendly ship and you're guilty, so you'll be hanged. Once they sentenced pirates to be hanged, if they were found guilty, they would take them to a place in London that this time was called Execution Dock. Pretty eerie place, and we'll be going there in just a few minutes. You'll see firsthand what it looked like. But this is a little bit about what happened there at Execution Dock.
Many a pirate was hung on Execution Dock in the River Thames in London, but the most famous hanging was Captain Kidd's in 1701. The rope broke and he had to be hanged a second time. They say 200,000 people were there in the hope he'd reveal where his treasure was buried. Behind you are the rare documents of this notorious moment in time. Even the original logbook of Captain Kidd's final journey from Boston to this dock where he died.
So talk about bad luck, has to be hanged twice. It's not too much fun. But anyway, so Captain Kidd was hanged there, and after they would hang these famous captains that had some success, they would pour tar on them, put them in an iron cage called a gibbet. They would hang them out over the Thames River for all to see. They were, after all, criminals, make an example of them to try to deter people from becoming pirates. Didn't always work, though. Anyway, we have here also Blackbeard, I mentioned earlier, before he went rogue, was a privateer, and he was known as one of the king of the pirates. Although as famous as Blackbeard was, did you know he was only a pirate for about 28 months before he was killed? Yeah. Pirates captains did not live long enough to collect their 401ks back then. So here's a little bit about Blackbeard. We're going to go have a look at some of his artifacts here in just a second.
The island of Ocracoke lies just off the coast of North Carolina. It was the favorite anchorage of Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, in the height of his reign of terror in 1718. The remains of his flagship, Queen Anne's Revenge, which I happened to dive on, are a mile offshore, some of which you will see as you venture throughout the museum.
So the gentleman in the videos here, his name is Pat Crochet. Pat Crochet, he's actually the owner of this museum. He himself is an explorer and actually found Francis Drake's ship, the Elizabeth, there off the coast of Portobello Bay. There's a little video on that in the other room. And he himself has been collecting pirate artifacts for over 40 years now. And this is the largest collection in the world. There's over 800 here in this museum that have been identified as authentic. And you'll see that as you go to the museum, that we have quite a bit here. So we have some friends down at Walt Disney World, and they have created for us here an audio recording of Blackbeard's battle, his final battle against Lieutenant Maynard. We have that down below deck. Would you like to have a listen to that? Sure. So let's head down that way, and we'll do that right now then. Come along.
Yeah.
So this is the gun deck. That's the main deck of the ship. You just came through there. This is the actual size of a pirate ship back in the 1700s. It's called a sloop. About 90 feet from the captain's cabin to the below deck area here in the front. And the width is the actual width of the ship. The only ships that were any wider than this back in the 1700s would have been military ships. And they were about 3 feet wider on each side because they had about 50 more sailors on them. Average pirate crew was anywhere from 40 to 60 men. Military ships had anywhere from 75 to 100 on them, so they were a little more, but still so, you can see the quarters were quite tight. They were very close, we'll say. Now these are some cannons. These are actually real cannons. These are iron cannons, the type you would most commonly find on a pirate ship. On this side, we have a brass cannon. The brass cannons were more commonly found on military ships, as they were more expensive, and the pirates really didn't care for polishing brass anyway. So unless they had stolen one of those, you usually found these iron cannons. That is a 4-pound cannon. This is a 6-pound, and they go by the weight of the cannonball as to what size you call them. And they go up to 64 pounds. So that's a pretty big cannon. That can do some damage there, big time. And of course the black powder, these are blunderbuss. This is a blunderbuss. They call these like sawed-off shotguns today. We could put crushed glass or nails down the barrel of these things and blast it out. They're only accurate for about 10 or 15 feet, but it would keep people from boarding their ship. This is a replica of the one that was found on Blackbeard's ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, about a mile off Ocracoke Inlet. We have some more items like that in here. So we're going to head in now and have a listen. We're going to go ahead and put the headsets on and have a listen to Blackbeard's battle.